Hey, greetings, everybody. This is Brent Siebold with Arizona State University, Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the Ira A. Fulton Schools of Engineering. This is our weekly Make It Happen session. Kudos to all of you for making the time to join us. We have a very special guest, Brad, has joined us here. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's an innovator, and he's got some really good insights to share around a super important topic, which has to do with emotional intelligence, which is one of the I guess your sixth sense, if you will, of your five senses, and one that's super important as it relates to being a change maker, not only within the workplace, which many of you are already operating in or soon will be operating in, but also within the world of innovation and building new products and services. So, Brad, thanks so much for joining us here today for Make It Happen at ASU.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Cool. So, we generally have a really diverse group of both students and staff and faculty. So with the size of today's group, I'm hoping we might kick things off by allowing everybody to say hello. So if we could go around the room, we'll say who we are, what we're studying, and if you have any fun things cooking on the back burner or the front burner related to your career or related to projects or related to ventures you might be working on that might benefit from Brad's insight related to emotional intelligence, please do share those with us. So Tanmay, you want to start and say hello?
Hey, hello guys, Tanmay. I'm doing my master's in mechanical engineering, and yeah, recently worked on some projects, but right now in this quarantine situation, only like on the halt. So yeah, doing some online courses.
Great. All your projects have become virtual, whether you like it or not. So thanks, Tanmay.
Yeah, like planning to how to bring them online better.
Well, there's an opportunity for innovation in and of itself. So join the club.
Yes, even I thinking from the long time before this, like how we can make the system like on the virtually, like every industry has to have the physical space to do all those jobs. So if we can move virtually, the companies, it will save huge amount to the money to the companies. It's like,
well said. Yeah, well, we're glad to see you. Thanks for coming back. Appreciate it. We'll move on to Josh. You want to say hi?
Hey guys, this is my first one I'm attending and it seems cool. I am majoring in business entrepreneurship, and I just about 2 weeks ago pitched for the first time in Venture Devils for an idea I have called Got You, and it's basically a gig economy marketplace for on-demand hiring.
Oh, very cool.
And I would include the aspect of essentially like verifying that they're capable for the job beforehand, so that on the click, if they're within the location that the person is needed, then they're matched right away.
That's fantastic. Good for you, Josh. I'm glad you got involved in Venture Devils. It's a great program at Arizona State, in case you're aware, but in case others aren't aware, it's it's basically like an athletic league for practicing entrepreneurs. So at any point you can join the league and present what you're working on, and you'll be assigned a coach or a mentor. And those mentors can help you move your product, such as your gig economy website or app or whatever it might be, down the chain of development. So kudos. Josh, real quick, and Brad, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but Josh, the domain you're operating in, one of our greatest success stories out of the Venture Devils program was tackling a very similar issue when Keith Ryu was at ASU a few years ago. He created a product very similar to yours, and you might want to look it up now. He's rebranded several times. It's called Fountain, and his most recent capital raise in Silicon Valley was north of $10 million. So fountain.com is, founded by a very recent ASU alum named Keith Ryu. That's R-Y-U. And I had the pleasure to meet Keith in a setting very similar to this one here today for the first time. And he, like you, Josh, and many other people around the table, including Ben and others that I recognize, are working at that early stage of trying to find problem solution fit. And ultimately, if you keep at it like Keith did, you'll ultimately find product market fit and probably raise a bunch of money. So,
Yes, sir. Hopefully, I appreciate that. I'll check that out.
yeah, check it out. Fountain.com. He's an ASU guy. Very proud alumni. A lot written on the web about him too, through the ASU lens. So check it out. Eric, do you want to say hello? I'm just going in order of Brady Bunch tiles here, by the way.
Yeah, sure. Hey, I'm Eric Prosser. I am the Engineering and Entrepreneurship Librarian through ASU Library. And I like to pop into these meetings just to let you know I'm here as a resource if you need any type of research needs or assistance. One thing I've been working on recently is a lot of the organizations that issue standards. I don't know if you've dealt with standards before, but they're typically behind paywalls and you have to have subscriptions to get to them. But with everything going on with COVID-19, a number of them are opening up relevant standards free of use. And we've got a guide in the library now that can point you towards any type of standards and other information that's out there freely available now when it's typically behind paywalls that relates to that. So I can pop that link into the chat in case you need it. Thanks.
Yeah, please do. Thanks, Eric. Always great to have you involved. Thanks for being here.
Right.
All right, Dana, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Dana. I'm an entrepreneurship catalyst. So I see at least one familiar name, Tyson. And Brent, we met sort of momentarily at, it was the ASUIO event. You actually gave me directions to a meeting and it was actually very helpful. So thank you for that. But yeah, so I'm also a student. I'm a sophomore studying health entrepreneurship and innovation and absolutely loving it. And I'm excited to be on this call. It's the first one I'm on for this sort of series. So excited for that.
Great. It's nice to have you. And yes, Dana, I remember that interaction very well. It was a crazy day. Yeah, so you were looking for Rick Hall's group. That's the HEAL lab, right? The health entrepreneurial lab based at the downtown campus, but serving the entire university. So if any of you are working on anything related to health, Dana can probably help. And her crew at the HEAL lab are very well positioned there. And then also a plug, since Dana brought it up, we run a very large externally facing competition that Venture Devils oftentimes feeds into called the ASU Innovation Open. It's our answer to similar competitions such as the Rice Business Plan competition in Texas and the MIT 100 out of Boston. So last year where Dana, well, no, it wasn't last year, it was in January, feels like last year. In January, Dana came to the competition. Some of you have maybe heard about it. We had over $300,000 in funding, and unfortunately, no ASU team won. There was, I think, our couple of grand prize winners of $100K each came from USC and MIT. So we got to get the big Innovation Open prize back this coming year in 2021. So one of you needs to step up with something big, and you need to make it happen, as they say.
No pressure.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Darren. So I'm putting my money on Marin. Marin, you want to say hello?
Hi, my name is Marin. I'm a senior computer science student, and I'm in Brent's class, the FSU 301 right now, working on a venture. So yeah, it's good to be here.
Good to see you, Marin. You better win. In my class, there's $3,000 available alone. So
no pressure.
The judging starts today, Marin, so get ready.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
All right. Good to see you again. Mandy, you want to say hello? Mandy might be away from her computer. Gabe, thanks for joining us. Do you want to say hello to everybody?
You bet. My name is Gabe Rice, and I am a program coordinator with down at the Edson College of Nursing, working with Dr. David Kuhn. I'm coming back for my second bachelor's. I have a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in neuroscience, and I've always loved engineering, and so I got into the electrical engineering program, and I've been trying to get into some of these discussions for quite a while for Make It Happen. And I guess, Brent, you did send me one recorded session, which I appreciate, but the recorded online sessions haven't been available as of until now, which is great because it gives me an opportunity to participate. And thank you very much. I look forward to this presentation.
Great. Thanks for joining us, Gabe. Yeah, see, TanMate virtual does actually help in many situations, right? So that's the challenge. Great stuff. And Gabe mentioned he's from the Edson College of Nursing and Health. I believe that's the correct name. The Edson family just recently named our College of Health, broadly speaking. But they've been involved actually in the world of entrepreneurship dating back to 2005 here at ASU. Mr. and Mrs. Edson were responsible for founding the Bayliner Marine Corp. They make boats. And in the mid 80s, Mr. Edson became a billionaire, and he met President Crow on a fishing trip in Alaska. And the next week wrote a check to ASU for $5.4 million, which endowed our Edson Student Entrepreneur Initiative, which Josh is now competing for that funding through the ASU Pitch Playoffs as part of Venture Devils. So we have a great network of innovative and entrepreneurial donors and students, and it's really, regardless of which discipline you're studying, tons of resources available and great supporters like the Edson family to back it all up. So thanks for being here, Gabe. Appreciate it. So looks like my colleague Melissa has joined us from Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the Fulton Schools. Melissa, do you want to Zoom bomb and say hello?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa. I work with Brent. I think I know a lot of you or may have emailed you before. I'm the one that sends out all the reminders and stuff and does a lot of the programmatic help with E&I events and programs. So I hopped on today to be here to hear more about it, and just hope y'all are doing well in all your classes and stuff. And I'm sure Brent has mentioned, you know, let us know if there's anything we can do to help outside of this to make sure you have a strong rest of the semester, but looking forward to hearing more today.
Great. Thanks, Melissa. For those of you that are familiar with campus, Melissa and I spend most of our time between Engineering Center G Wing, where the generator labs is, and then Melissa's office is in Engineering Center F Wing, and we're separated by a patio. And I just visited there yesterday, Sunday. I went in to go make some illegal copies. Oh, by the way, I'm recording this session. I shouldn't say that publicly.
Oh my gosh.
For my kids' worksheet for school. Thank you for your tuition dollars. You're supporting education at all levels. Thank you. But anyway, Melissa's office is right there. And I noticed that she has a brand new window decal on her office suite promoting student engagement for all ASU students, especially engineering students that want to get involved.
Yeah,
Your office is looking good.
Yeah, I used to say that my office was just past the catapult, so if you could find that, you could probably find us. But now when you walk by, it's a lot of different pictures from some of our different events, including E&I, and it's ASU Golden stuff. So you should be able to find us if you haven't been there, but I think a lot of you have been into our space before. So we're excited, and hopefully, yeah, once we get back to campus, we can have a proper like reopening of the office in the space.
Great. All right, Benjamin, are you there?
Hey all, my name is Ben. I'm a freshman studying mechanical engineering. I recently joined a global initiative through GCSP for designing engineering things for combating the coronavirus. I'm starting to propose a project for that now. And on the side, I'm working on getting my first patent. I'm really excited to be here. Good to see you again, Brent and Melissa.
Yeah, Thanks for joining us, Ben. And Ben, you're also a member of the Engineering Projects and Community Service, also participating in Venture Devils, going head to head against Josh for the big money this spring, I believe. Is that correct?
That is indeed correct. Best of luck to you, Josh.
You too.
Battle Royale, Brad, happening right here today between these two. Watch out. You
Hey,
never
good
know.
luck.
Aaron.
Iron sharpens iron.
That's a good one. I like that. Tasha, are you with us or just your two dogs?
No, I'm here. So I'm Tasha. I'm the human resource major that keeps on coming around. I don't do anything interesting except for hang out with dogs.
Hey, don't underestimate the power of dogs or human resources, both really important. And I'm sure Brad's message here today about emotional intelligence will serve you very well in your future role as a human manager of resources, because lots of emotional intelligence involved in that neck of the woods. So glad you're here today, Tasha.
Thank you.
All right. How about Paul?
Hello.
Hey, Paul.
Hey guys, how's it going? My name's Paul DeCoste. I'm not involved in the entrepreneurship major track, but I met Brent. I met you when Ryan Taylor came to do the Dash Talk. So I've been getting the updates through E&I. So Melissa, when you're talking about the emails, I think that's probably me as well. That's been getting those. And I have a startup company called LoadBlock. And we use blockchain technology to provide fraud prevention solutions in the trucking industry, more specifically to factoring companies. And so whenever I see these, I try and get on. I'm working from home with my headset on, so it's pretty easy to just jump right on. So thank you guys for taking the time to do this.
Great. Thanks for jumping in, Paul. We're always happy to have you. And just to clarify, Paul was referencing a prior Make It Happen session where we featured the CEO of Dash cryptocurrency, which is home based. One of their corporate headquarters is right here in Phoenix. And Ryan Taylor, the CEO of Dash HQ or whatever it's called. They have several beachheads, but Ryan is a great supporter of our engineering students. And blockchain, as Paul was hinting, is massive in the future of both commerce and society, quite frankly. So, Paul, glad to have you involved.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so looks like we have Tyson from, Tyson, are you there?
Yeah, hey Brent, how's it going?
Doing well. Good to see you, or see your name at least.
Yeah, at least. Are we just doing introductions? I came in a little late. So.
Oh yeah, no worries. Yes, please.
Okay. So hello everyone. My name is Tyson Elias. I am currently a sophomore in industrial engineering. I work closely with Brent and the other ECs. I enjoy coming to these Make It Happens that Brent hosts quite often, a lot just because it's good on networking, along with being able to help anyone who's out there looking to have a startup company and all that.
Great, thanks Tyson. Appreciate that. And Tyson, like Dana, it sounds like, is an entrepreneurial catalyst. Tyson is home based in the engineering schools, I should say, and Dana is home based in the schools of health or colleges of health, however you want to say that. So we've got a great group. Sounds like Tyson's got some dogs in the background, or he's chewing on squeaky toys, one of the two.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm actually outside right now, so it was a dog that had a squeaky toy walking around.
I'm just messing with you. It's all good. Anyway, last but not least, it looks like we have, maybe we'll circle back and try to get Mandy as well, but Matilda, do you want to say hello to everyone? How about Mandy? Mandy, have you joined us?
It looks like she has microphone problems. She just sent a text. Hi, Mandy.
Oh, I see. Perfect. Okay, great. So yeah, Matilda, if you're listening to, feel free to say hello to everybody using chat, unless you want to give it one more shot.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Matilda.
How is everyone doing?
Everybody's giving thumbs up.
All right, I'm fine here, and I just wanted to say that I enjoy coming to this program, and I've been benefiting too because I also have a startup that I'm currently running, and these programs have been a great resource to me and my team. So I just wanted to say it. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for joining again, Matilda. And Matilda is one of our, I believe, aren't you a MasterCard scholar from Ghana?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, great, fantastic program here at Arizona State University. Lots of really innovative students coming over from Africa, doing some amazing work, and Matilda is one of them. And for those of you that do come to Make It Happen quite often, she's usually flanked by at least one or two other African students pining for the crown of most innovative MasterCard scholar, and it's almost all of them are amazing people. You've got the place to yourself here today, Matilda.
Yes, I have the place to myself today.
Great. Well, we're glad to have you. And without further ado, Brad, thank you so much for joining us. And we'll give you the floor for, like I said earlier, about 10, 20, 30 minutes. I know you've got some slides you'd like to share with the group. And I'd love to hear your insights based on your background. If you could, feel free to introduce yourself if that's not part of your presentation. And you can toggle over to your slides whenever you feel most comfortable. But thanks so much, Brad.
Thank you. So this is my first time speaking in this group, and I just want to say thank you for giving me probably your most valuable asset and commodity, your time today, especially with everything going on. So I don't take that lightly, and I hope that I can at least share one piece of information with everyone that might incite some more investigation, reading, or at least some thought. So my background, I'm very industry agnostic. I've worked a lot in information security, encryption, biometrics, logical access, physical access, smart cards for the government. So I did a lot of work in IT and supply chain. I worked for value-added resellers, distributors, manufacturers there for a while. And in addition to that, I've run some digital marketing professional service company groups, architectural and engineering company. I've done consulting with IBM on artificial intelligence, machine learning, or I think they were trying to call it cognitive intelligence at one point. Done some investment banking, did a weird pivot and tried franchising as a franchisor. Amazing Lash Studio. I don't know if anybody's seen those, but I was an executive there, and we just sold that to a private equity firm last year. And now I'm working with an electromagnetic compatibility, interoperability, radio frequency accredited test facility that tests on behalf of the FCC, the European Union, Australia, New Zealand. In addition, I'm on an advisory board for a health and wellness company and doing some other things as well. So I think one of the things that has allowed me to be industry agnostic and to be able to say, okay, I can go from eyelash extensions in a beauty industry to electromagnetic interoperability testing is emotional intelligence, or EQ. And I talk to a lot of people at private equity levels and who I respect a lot in industries in tech in Silicon Valley, New York, Israel. And one thing that we all share in common, or not all of us, but a lot of us, is the passion about emotional intelligence and how useful it is amongst another set of soft skills. But no matter what, in most cases, your organizations are going to be run by people, even if they're very tech-heavy organizations, or even if they're hospitality or restaurants like you're seeing today, and that industry being impacted differently than the others. There are exceptions where you have a one-person organization that does $100 million a year, but they are exceptions to the rules. Most organizations have people in them, and I think emotional intelligence and the power of it really gives you a nice foundation to drive everything else forward. So that's what I wanted to talk a little bit about today. I want this to be fun and engaging, and part of my emotional intelligence thinking coming in here was, how do I do that? Do I structure it? Do I have questions in between so people kind of don't doze off? What do I do? So that's, using that in one application as well as trying to put myself in your point of view, wondering, how am I going to make this engaging? I know I'm probably going to not make it engaging to some people, but I'm going to try to cover as many people as I can. So that's my goal and my perspective here. So as far as questions go, I'd say I recommend if you want to type them on the side, I can, try to pop in and out of them, or worst case, we can go over them at the end for Q&A. But I want this to be engaging too. I don't want you all to just be forced to listen to me for 10, 20 minutes. I know that can get monotonous. So I encourage the questions, jump in. If they stay limited, I'd say take yourself off mute and just ask. I have no problem with being interrupted. I want this to be engaging, and I need one person to start with that question. Usually the rest will follow suit. So thanks in advance, whoever that person is to begin. All right, so does that kind of give you an idea of who I am, what I do, you think?
Great.
Yeah. Could you explain the term industry agnostic?
Yeah, good question. Great question. So that means, usually I work as an executive or consultant and I'll help a business operate. And on the other side, I help them match to buyers. Now I do that, like I was saying, between different industries. Like some people have all their experience and work their whole life in the healthcare industry, or some people work their whole life in an industry that's just technology or hospitality. So I've been an executive in all different sorts of industries. And that means I'm industry agnostic, meaning I can be an executive in any industry. I'm not a person that just plays in one or two. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. Thanks. So thank you, first person. So come on with the questions. I don't mind it. I think it helps. Okay, so I'm going to try to share my screen here and go through some slides and minimize so I can see. There we go. All right, so what is emotional intelligence? I don't want to spend too much time in the nitty gritty, but according to Cambridge Dictionary, emotional intelligence, or sometimes it's referred to EQ or emotional quotient, is defined as the ability to understand the way people feel and react, and to use this skill to make good judgments and to avoid or solve problems. Now that's a loaded statement with a lot going on there, but you're seeing a lot of soft skills here. Understand, feel, judgments are more thinking. So you see some hard skills as well, problem solving. And I think that really kind of captures what emotional intelligence is. It can be the foundation of how to understand your landscape and all of the people you're interacting and working with, and using the combination of soft skills of understanding what they might be thinking and perceiving, how to influence them and transfer information more effectively, in addition to where that takes you for hard skills as far as problem solving, decision making. How do you funnel down information to a yes or no answer? So it's just a fluid kind of combination of that hard and soft skill, and being able to go back and forth between one and the other and using one for the other as well. So right at the bottom, it says EQ, or let's say EI, equals self plus relationships plus environment. Now, if you're thinking about those three things, that covers a lot of ground. And that's what I feel is kind of what artificial or emotional intelligence is. It's really dot connecting and looking at a broad data set of information, and then looking for trends, anomalies, and then being able to figure out, okay, how do I navigate through this with the help of the combination of people and information in order to get the best outcome. And before we go into some of these real quick, I want to let you know that I've been a part of some great organizations and some very, very bad organizations. I've seen, some good ones turn into bad ones, and some bad ones turn into good ones, and everything in between. One of the key things that I learned along the way was emotional intelligence and culture, and how those two intertwine is really one of the key indicators. If I see a company that I feel is going to grow and take off and do something, they obviously have to have multiple things, but that's a big indicator for me, is who is their leadership and what type of culture and emotional intelligence are they going to implement in their culture and their organization from the ground up. That can tell you a lot about an organization. I'm sure all of you know emotional intelligence, good emotional intelligence and bad when you see it. It could be an organization of two people in a relationship. It could be a 5-person small company. It could be a 10,000 person large organization. But you know it when you see it. And a lot of it is engagement. I want to turn this over to anyone. If you have input, chime in. If not, that's okay. I'll give an example myself. But can anyone think of an example where you've been part of a workplace or group in a college class where you just felt the emotional intelligence of the group was low, people just weren't engaged and weren't having a good time relating and working together, versus a group or workplace that has the opposite? Do you have any characteristics that you can share of what you think is an example of bad emotional intelligence in those situations versus good? Anyone?
Yeah, I recently was working with an organization, and I'm not going to say any names or anything, but there was sort of a level of the leadership was, it was sort of, we had a leader and she was sort of that boss type, not so much like you want to follow her lead kind of thing. And I think it came down to her ability to sort of, relate and empathize with workers. And she had a background in military, so she kind of had she added a lot to the group in a lot of ways. But I think in some ways it was kind of damaging to not be able to connect and empathize with other workers and that sort of thing. But I've also had companies that I've worked with where the leadership, I guess what I'm trying to say is that leadership, I think, plays a big role. And so when you have key people in the team that demonstrate the values of EQ, it really kind of sets the tone for sure.
Dana, great example there too. And empathy is one of the first things I think people go towards when they talk about, emotional intelligence. And it goes to leadership. And a good quote I heard recently was, bosses push, leaders pull. And leaders lead by example. And from my experience, I've gone through a few acquisitions where our companies went from like 6 million to 120 million, in a few years. And EQ was a big part of that. And the thing is, we never managed, we never fired anybody. We never disciplined everybody. We set out at the early stage and said, we want to work with people that we want to work with. They don't have to be just like us, but we involved a lot of people in our interview process. We had data and we valued how they would fit as a team and how we envisioned us working with them. And I don't think we probably, didn't do it as purposely as we'd like to say. In hindsight, we kind of wanted to go that way and we ended up going that way. And things fell into place, but the productivity out of that team, because everybody loved working together and had a great relationship and a psychological safety, we could say anything to each other and nobody would get offended, and everybody made everybody better and was very mindful about, okay, I'm not going to talk to this person the same way I talk to this other person because our relationship is a little different. But that's what kind of drove us, like you said, is our executive team. We did not manage, we led, and we led through service. One of our biggest approaches to the team was, what can we do to remove obstacles out of your way, and what can we do to best support your efforts? And still to this day at my other organizations, I still end most of my emails with that, was how can I best support your efforts, or how can I best clarify or support your efforts? And it's so important to picture yourself on the other side of that email, right? Or communication, because everybody's got somebody they report to, right? We even, executives have shareholders or investors. So one way or another, the way you're seeing that communication to your team that's working for you, you have to put yourself in their place, because you probably think about it differently when you're interacting up the chain versus down. And I think seeing everybody as human beings as opposed to somebody upper or lower on the org chart made us incorporate emotional intelligence and really put a lot of things that impede companies' growth aside. We weren't fighting, we weren't bickering, there was no egos. We didn't care about who got it right as long as we got it right collectively as a team. And we knew we had Harvard grads, we had, Yale grads, and guess what? Everybody's human and everybody makes mistakes, especially when you get busy. Some of the people who, we had a guy from Yale who always said, his accuracy rate was like 99.6%. And, he made mistakes too. Everybody made mistakes, but we all were good about how to work through them together. And we never pointed blame. We all just felt like, okay, somebody made a mistake. How do we collectively help that person and help solve that problem together? And it goes to your point, Dana, as far as leadership. And leadership isn't just one person or executive. It was that whole founding team of our corporation that became a scalable leadership model. And as we added more people, leadership was everybody. It wasn't just, executives or anybody else. So, all right, I'm from New York, so I go off on tangents, so my apologies. But I think that's a good point there. All right, so let's go back to the slideshow. And again, great questions. I encourage them. Okay, so emotional intelligence domains and competencies, and hopefully I can send this slideshow to you. I've linked all my sources here. My goal today, since I'm definitely not, an emotional intelligence expert, let's say, is not to teach you so much about this, but to spark your interest to go research this more from credible sources. So self-awareness, I think emotional self-awareness is crucial to that. Self-management, being able to control what you can control and not worry about the things you can, or you cannot, I'm sorry. Being adaptable. I have some slides later about COVID and how this relates, but right now, what do you think all these employers are talking about as far as a skill set when we hire people in this post-COVID world, or even in this world today? It's adaptability. Companies are really struggling with people who have never worked remote right now, and it's a change, and some people don't deal well with change management, but I think emotional intelligence gives you a great tool to work through that. Achievement orientation, I heard a lot about that on this call so far. So I think EI definitely keeps you goal oriented. And have a positive outlook. I think there's realism, pessimism, and optimism. And I think optimism is very important to have, because when you're leading by example, you need to inspire others, and you need to find some way to convince them to be inspired. I feel a lot of leaders will give you kind of pie in the sky hopes, or they won't really put the effort in to get buy-in from everybody. And I think having something to be optimistic and excited about, and having a culture where you celebrate the wins, helps keep that positivity going, because not everyone is going to be positive every day, but collectively, if you have that as part of your culture and are using EI, I think it helps over the long run with the group. Social awareness, Dana spoke of empathy there and leadership, and I think it's kind of like the golden rule, which I'll get into later, as far as maybe not even the golden rule, but I think we call it the platinum rule, as don't treat others how you want to be treated, treat others how they would want to be treated. And relationships and everything that goes in them. Relationships, there's very few absolutes in them, so all of this is so important. One of the things that ties into emotional intelligence is communication. And I can't tell you how many organizations, if they spent 1/10 of their time training and developing on communication as they do other things, I feel their bottom line would go up drastically. I think we overlook the foundation of how a team and all these groups of human beings work together, and try to get really good at accounting or blockchain or Excel spreadsheets and all these details. But without the foundation, we're not as productive. When I go through acquisitions or high growth periods in a company where we have hiring freezes, we can't hire more people, but we're growing like this, but our staff stays like this, we get under-resourced. So before we do anything else, we train in how do you effectively communicate, how do you effectively prioritize, and how do you effectively manage your time, and also how do you effectively ask for help. So we try to create oh, go ahead, Dana.
I mean, I don't want to interrupt right there, but I'm curious if you have any examples of how do you effectively communicate? You know, what are some sort of actionable steps that I could start implementing, say, you know, with my team?
That's a great question. So effective communication, the way we teach it, is when the other person understands. So confirming that they understand, or clarifying, or asking them, so are we on the same page? Are we aligned that this means this? And trying to make it as simple as possible. Instead of writing like a whole paragraph in an email, you know, maybe that sometimes you start like that. Take a time out, reread it, and say, is there a way, you know, is this word necessary? Is that word necessary? Try to keep consolidating and make it concise. And a lot of times you start with a paragraph, and then it can be down to 1 or 2 sentences that end in, would you like to do this, yes or no? So controlling the outcomes, try to minimize the number of outcomes or choices somebody can respond with. That works. And don't be afraid to clarify and be that person at the end of the conference call or video to say, wait a minute, before we wrap up, can we just reiterate action items, who owns them, when are they due? Can we do that just so there's no, you know, misinterpretation? Also, when you assign or delegate things, you can just put a little line at the end. Is there anything else I can do to help you clarify, you know, what I mean? Did I provide you enough direction? We're always going to have miscommunications, but I think leave yourself an out at the end to assume that, hey, I probably didn't say something as well as I could have here. Why don't I give them an opportunity to ask questions and to let them know, hey, I'm willing to help you clarify whatever I'm saying here. That's my suggestion. So another great question. And some of the best information, I think, in presentations comes from questions as opposed to the content that I created. So thank you. You're bailing me out.
I also have like a comment kind of question maybe.
Please.
One of the things that's interesting to me, I have a good friend of mine who's now retired. He was an engineer at a company with lots of engineers over in New Mexico. And they actually did a lot of training with emotional intelligence. It took a little questionnaire. They went through that, and then they were assigned to which emotional intelligence best fit them. And then that way, they actually, even on badges, had the whichever emotional intelligence best fit them on their badge. So that when you went into someone's office and they were, I don't remember what the different titles are now, this is several years ago I talked to him, but some people, when they're greeted, they like to be able to talk about their families for a minute, or so how are you doing? How's your day doing? How's your wife? You know, etc. While there's other people, they just want you to get to the point. Say, what's your problem? What can we do to address it? They don't want to have all the extra fluff. And so by understanding who you are working with and the different ways that they work and being able to adapt to their personalities works wonders. So in my current job, there's a couple people that I need to be very careful when I go to ask them a question, because I know I'm going to end up spending another 10, 15 minutes talking about other things. And so that I get my question in first and further right. There's a couple individuals where I know that if I go into their office and I talk to them, they want to get right to the point so they can get on with whatever else that they're doing. So I think that's just a basic understanding of how other people work and how you can apply that so that you can be more productive together.
Thank you. That's a great share, Gabe, and that's very additive to the conversation. And I think it goes back to that adaptability and understanding that no matter how much we all have in common, and we do have a ton in common, we're all human beings, there's still also that small percentage that we're all very different too. So being able to recognize those differences and figure out how to operate there, to say, I know what's most effective dealing with Joe is doing it this way. I know most effective dealing with Diana is this other way, and being able to have that information, and it's really all data points, you know, in your mind, and then figuring out how to navigate to the best of your advantage. And that's a great point right there. All right. So let me get back on the share real quick and keep them coming. All right, so just I think we touched base on a lot of this for EI. Again, I have some sources here. I hope you check them out later. Creativity, I think encouragement, empowerment, as far as, they've called things, if you've ever heard Theory X management is more of that authoritative style hierarchy. Theory Y is more empowerment. I think this ties into a lot of Theory Y, which, a lot of the companies in Silicon Valley have been going towards for years. Harvard Business has been teaching it for years, and most of those cutting edge organizations. So authenticity, I think, is huge. We used to have things we used to have company birthday parties, and all of us were such great friends and had great relationships. We hung out outside of work, but we never felt comfortable getting all together in a conference room for a birthday party, because we all knew how to act with each other kind of one-on-one in small groups, but we weren't used to everybody being in the same room. So it was a funny conversation we had about that, but it went back to authenticity, being comfortable, and being safe to say, hey, these birthday parties are awkward. How can we make them a little bit better? We all like each other. What are we doing wrong? And healthy relationships and all that stuff equals, for an organization, I think, better retention. If you put in the work up front, especially in the hiring process, like I said, finding the right people you want to work with, and it all equals better results. Let me see if I can forward here. There we go. Okay, so why does EI matter? I have sources again to all these links, but nearly 90% of top performers have a higher level of emotional intelligence. I think a lot of these links here are from the Harvard Business Review and some different academic associations. Emotional intelligence accounts for 90% of career advancements when IQ and technical skills are roughly similar. That seems to be the competitive advantage and differentiation. People with emotional intelligence make on average 29K more, I believe that's annually, than their counterparts. Almost 85% of your financial success is due to skills in human engineering, personality, and ability to communicate, negotiate, and lead. Only 15% of your financial success is due to technical ability, according to this. Now, I also am a believer that you could probably find just about any study or data point to back up any point possible from one end of the spectrum to the other online. So I'd say look at more data to find the trends and anomalies. Obviously, some of those points can probably be contested to some degree, but what we do see is at the data at large, there's a huge overwhelming amount that points towards emotional intelligence as a differentiator in success, especially in organizations where human beings are very influential. So additional quantifiable data and research, again, the only thing I know is probably that I know so little. I'm still learning every day about a lot of this stuff and trying to apply it more and more. So I'm not here to tell you this is the way this is or that is so much as to say, here, I hope this inspires some thought and some critical thinking. And you'll see in another slide, over 75% of Fortune 500 companies are investing in emotional intelligence at the very least. That's all just through one vendor. When I was coming up in my career, once I started working more with Silicon Valley companies and some companies in Europe and Washington, D.C., I walked in and visited their office and saw such a difference. And what I learned, and this was 15, 20 years ago, was a lot of it had to do with how they looked at emotional intelligence, culture, and these soft skills to make their people happy. And if their people were happy and they had friends at work that they liked to come see and work with and that they didn't want to let down, that the organizations thrived. And it was harder to measure back then. But now what these organizations see with all these analytics and data science is that indirectly it's a huge impact on the bottom line, both short term, but especially long term. There's a few, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, do you feel that EQ is something that you've always sort of had, or is it kind of something more that you've developed over time? I'm sure there's a little bit of both in there, but do you see maybe more people who are successful with it just sort of as an innate talent, or kind of, is it, more talent or is it more skills? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, another great question, Dana. So right now, I think there's two camps out there in the educational world studying this. And some people say that EQ cannot be taught or developed. It's just something you're born with and that's it. You can become more aware of it, but you can't really get better or worse. And then the other camp, which I think is the earlier camp, if I'm not mistaken, says that you can get better and practice EQ and you can see differences. So there's studies that show that, yes, there's studies that support both, to be honest with you. And they're still kind of sorting this out and going back and forth. But my personal opinion is that if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And we provided, training on these topics, and we saw quantifiable improvements in a lot of areas before, or, from before the training kicked in to throughout the training and the development process once we started implementing this. So we saw what we felt were good results. We had a occupational psychologist working on this with us too at the private equity firm, and we felt pretty confident that we saw the impact and people getting better.
Very nice. Cool.
Great question. Another great question. Thank you. All right, so just real quick, there's some resources. There's something called the Consortium for Research on Emotional Intelligence in Organizations. That's a cool little website to check out. By all means, don't stop there. And some of it's subjective, but most of it is objective, and he does a good job, Dr. Robert Emmerling, of compiling a lot of information and other studies on the topic and putting it there. So check that out. All right, so the power today more than ever. Like I said, over 75% of Fortune 500 companies rely on Talent Smart, which is one of the big leaders in emotional intelligence products and services. They especially help with vetting candidates before they get in the door, and also identifying potential leaders and figuring out who to promote from this as well. So you don't hear about it so much in Arizona. We're not as sophisticated and as some markets in a lot of areas, but definitely in the enterprise level. I feel the leaders, especially in tech, are doing a great job of this and have been for decades. On March 27th, the World Economic Forum listed EI as one of 6 intelligences that will drive smart leadership in disrupted times. Again, I think we're going through an acceleration and transformation of the 4th industrial revolution. COVID is going to accelerate that even more, I feel, and there's some good information here about why soft skills like this are going to be more and more valuable in the future. Yale also published a new webinar on using EI to combat COVID-19 anxiety. Fast Company published 5 ways emotional intelligence can help us through the COVID or coronavirus crisis, and these are all within the last week or two. So there's a lot more information coming about this. And the last one here, the Harvard Business Review, which I'm a huge fan of HBR, also the MIT Sloan publications. If you haven't checked those out yet, check out Harvard Business Review. They do such a great job in simplifying complex topics and are so helpful. So takeaways and next steps. Learn more about EI, emotional intelligence. See the links I included. I'll get this presentation to Brennan if I'm allowed to. I'll share that. That's my point today. I don't want to info dump. You'll probably forget 80 to 90% of everything I have said here today. So if you have one takeaway, I'd say go explore and research, go learn more about this, and learn more about the application of it too. Reflect on your own emotions. Ask others for perspective. I was on a call with a recruiter today, and I asked him, I said, hey, what could we have done better, as a client? And he said, you know what, nobody's really ever asked me that before. But it's free advice and it makes us better. And I think it's very important to ask people to have more data points that you can go off of to say, hey, what can I do better? It's not about ego. We're all learning. We're all getting better at a lot of things. So I think asking for critical input is very valuable, and be able to accept it is valuable too. Be observant of your own emotions. Be considerate of others. Use the pause, taking a moment to think before speaking. This one, I can't undermine enough or overestimate, I'm sorry, can't overestimate enough. When people talk, learning how to communicate in a group setting is so crucial. People in general are not good listeners. So just having the pause and taking a moment to process what you have to say, and then also allowing people to finish their thoughts and continue on conversation. And doing that fine dance and balance is so crucial. It's so important, I think, to listen as opposed to just hear and ask those clarifying questions and truly be engaged. Explore the why, bridge the gap by taking someone else's perspective. You know, why do you see it this way? Why do you want it? Trying to understand perspectives is a big part of EI. We talked about criticism, and then the power of emotional intelligence is that it helps you build stronger relationships, achieve your goals, connect with your feelings, turn intention into action, and make informed decisions about what matters most. And I think it's the most common denominator. It's kind of the foundation that all these other skills and things we're doing operates off of, or at least one of them, or one of the foundational pillars, in my opinion. So thank you for your time today. The most valuable resource on earth, again, is that. I hope that all of you and yours are and remain well. And if you have any other questions, I am open.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Brad. Before we open it up to questions, you had mentioned that you're willing to share your deck. I'm sure many folks here would be eager to review that information. And just as a reminder, we are recording this Zoom, so we will have that posted on our YouTube channel here within the next month. We'll try to do post-production as quickly as we can, moving from Zoom to YouTube. But anyway, thank you so much for that, Brad. And yeah, feel free to email me your slides. I can pass those along or post those as a link on the YouTube channel. Or if you have them in the cloud right now, you're welcome to post them to the chat. Similar question we get for speakers such as yours that did such a great job is if you're open to sharing your email address with this group.
Oh, absolutely. And in my deck, I put my LinkedIn, my Twitter too. So I encourage everybody, especially, you know, with COVID and everything going on these times and what you all want to do. If there's anything I can do to help, please let me know. If that's introducing somebody in the network, if it's a question for advice, I may not get and respond back to you within a day or within an hour, but I always do my best to respond to every single email I get as soon as I can. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if your email methodology is anything like mine, it's either 3 minutes or 3 days is the typical.
Yes, exactly. All right, so there's my email, and then I don't have the PowerPoint in the cloud yet, but I'll be sure to email it to you. Great.
Thank you so much, Brad. Yes, Dana, please, question.
Brad, Brad, do you have a LinkedIn that we could connect with you?
Absolutely.
Yes, it was in the deck, and let me pull it here. Let me pull it off the deck real quick, and then I'm going to put it in the chat. So here we go. Oh, did that paste over? Oh, technology is great when it works. Hold on. Let me try to pull this link here one more time.
Great. Well, Brad's doing that. Any other questions? We have about 2 minutes during our normally scheduled hour. I'm happy to stick around and continue to play host. But thanks, Brad, for sharing all of your personal contact info.
Sure. I just posted the LinkedIn in there. Feel free to reach out. And I just have to say, I encourage you. This is a great opportunity during this economic transformation that's coming. Keep doing what you're doing. When I got started, I knew absolutely nothing. I made a ton of mistakes, and that's how I learned. And once you start to achieve a level of success, at least from my experience, you will realize that a great number of organizations have no idea what they're doing out there, and you can add a lot of value to them. I think, 2 out of 10 organizations or less probably operate very efficiently. I hope that you can help or create some of those 2 out of 10. So keep doing what you're doing. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, and good luck.
I just wanted to share one comment before heading out. As for the negative example of emotional intelligence, so I had a manager at a coffee shop, a really, really popular coffee shop, and she carried a little bit of a dark like aura. She was always grumpy, and she didn't really greet the customers with that much like genuine interest. And me, on the other hand, I would really try and talk to them a lot and try and be that engaging barista for them. and it just kind of made me upset that she would handle it that way while I was kind of putting in like 2 times the work. And what I think happened there is that the coffee shop was already doing so well, and she didn't really have to do a super good job to get customers because our customer base was the type that would always come back. So I feel like one thing that can drive emotional intelligence positively within an organization is like the genuine interest in people and the genuine interest in the overall growth of the organization, because even if you're doing good, you can still be doing better. So I just wanted to add that. I thought that was a good example.
Yeah, I know we're pressed for time, but what we try to do is do a monthly commitment to excellence. It's a meeting. Everybody just says, how can we get better? And it's making that part of the culture. So you nailed it there, because bad culture coughs out good people. Good culture coughs out bad people. So, which do you want to have, right?
Yeah.
Great point.
On that note, I just wanted to thank you, and yeah, that's it.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for squeezing in there under the wire there, Josh. I'm going to stop the recording. But like I said, I don't know what Brad's schedule is, but I'll stick around. But thanks so much for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
My pleasure.